continuing on to the next absolute value inequality. Once again, you're going to set up your positive situation and your negative situation. And once again, your positive situation is writing it exactly the way it is without the absolute value symbols, without the sticks, right? Without these guys, kind of like erasing these guys. And the other one is the same exact thing. The left one says 7 minus x. I'm also going to have a 7 minus x. But I need to flip the inequality symbol and change the sign of the right side. So I flipped it and changed the sign. I flipped it and changed the sign. Right? No, actually, I'm sorry. I wrote it exactly the way it was without the sticks. And over here, I flipped it and changed the sign. Flipped it, changed the sign. Okay, so let's work this out. On the positive situation, I'm going to subtract 7. Subtract 7. I have negative x is greater than or equal to negative 4. For my final step, I'm going to divide by a negative 1 to get rid of that negative sign. Divide by a negative 1, and you are dividing by a negative, so it's going to be x is less than or equal to positive 4. Okay, that's my answer for the positive situation. And now let's go for the negative situation. Same thing, let's subtract 7. Subtract 7. You're going to have a negative x is less than or equal to negative 10. When you do the negative 3, take away 7, you get negative 10. Final step would be to divide by negative 1. Divide by negative 1. So once again, you have to flip the inequality symbol. Flip it, and you get a positive 10 right there. Now you got to think of whether the answers are going to be together or apart. And once again, right here it says greater. So using the rule that greater, the word or is in greater, so you know that the areas are going to be apart. Now let me just verify that by showing you on a number line. And if they are apart, all you have to do is put the word or in between them. So you have 4 over here. You have 10 on the right side. This first one says x is less than or equal to 4, solid dot to the left. And this other one says x is greater than or equal to 10 to the right. So the areas are apart, which means I have to write the answers apart with the word or right between them. So that would be my answer right there. X is less than or equal to 4, or x is greater than or equal to 10. Let's try one more. Now in this case, it's a less than, so I know it's not going to be a greater where the areas are apart. I'm actually going to have to get 2 answers, and then I'm going to have to write them together as one compound inequality. Let me show all my work just so nobody gets lost here. Let me do the positive situation and the negative situation. Okay, the positive situation is writing it exactly the way it is, k minus 9 less than or equal to 4. Now the negative situation is the same thing, k minus 9, but instead of less than or equal to, you're going to go greater than or equal to, and instead of 4, you're going to put a negative 4. Okay, now how do you solve this? You simply add 9 to both sides, add 9. You will have k is less than or equal to 13. Okay, and on the other one, you add 9, k is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, now let's think about this on a number line. Now I already said that this original absolute value inequality has a less than, so it's going to be an area that's between here and here, right? If it had a greater, it'd be an area that's going that way or that way, so it would be apart. If it's greater than, you could just write your 2 answers apart with the word or in between them, but if it's less than, you have to put them in order and write them together as a compound inequality. So let me start with the k is greater than 5. 5 is right here. And let me go to k is less than or equal to 13. Let's put 13 over here. Okay, obviously, right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, right? On a number line. So the 13, it says k is less than or equal to 13. So that's going to be a solid dot at 13 going to the left. And the other one, this one that says k is greater than or equal to 5, solid dot at 5, greater than to the right. So as you could see, it's an area that's together. So it's an area that's together, so you're going to have to write this together as a compound inequality. Now, because we already drew the number line, it becomes very easy. You just put 5 on the left, 13 on the right, x in the middle, less than symbols on both. Now, of course, these are solid dots, so it has to be less than or equal to, less than or equal to. So there's my answer right there as a compound inequality. Let's move on to our final portion of tomorrow's test, where I give you graphs and you need to determine determine whether or what kind of absolute value inequality it is. Okay, so maybe we should go over some notes. Let me push this to the side. So to write the absolute value inequality, you have to use this setup right here. Okay, and the setup is absolute values of x minus your midpoint, and then your inequality belongs in here, and the inequality, it's a greater than symbol if the areas are apart. It's a less than symbol if the areas are together. Okay, so that's what I jotted down right here on the notes. Inside this box is where the inequality symbol goes. It's a greater than symbol if the areas are apart. It's a less than symbol if it's together. Okay, and your number on the right side of your setup is the distance from, it's the distance from your point to the midpoint. Okay, so let's keep this setup in mind, and let's take a look at this one right here. So we're going to set it up, the absolute value of x minus your midpoint. Okay, so what is the midpoint? If we think about it, 1 in, 1 in, 1 in, 1 in, the midpoint would be what? -4. That's the midpoint. Okay, so I'm actually going to write in a -4 right in there. Very important that we're plugging in a negative, because you're going to have to change that to a plus on your final absolute value inequality. And then what else does it say? Let's go back to the notes just to see. So we already have x, we already have x minus the midpoint. Now right here we're going to get the inequality, and again it's a greater than if the areas are apart. It's less than if the areas are together. So back here, are the areas apart or together? They're apart. So it's either going this way or that way. That tells me that inside my box on the notes, it's a greater symbol, a greater than symbol, because it's going that way or that way. If it were together, it'd be a less than symbol, but it's going that way or that way. It's a greater symbol. Does that make sense? Okay. And now going back to our notes, for the final number that's on this side, it's simply the distance from the point to the midpoint. Again, the distance from the point to the midpoint. So, what is the distance from one point to the midpoint? It's 2. Or from this one to that one, it's 2. So, the number out here is 2. And ladies and gentlemen, this is your answer. Of course, the only thing you need to do is change the minus to plus. So, your final answer, by the way, you're going to have to write it small on tomorrow's test, is x plus 4, close parenthesis, greater than 2. That's the absolute value inequality that produces that graph up there. Let's try one more. This one does not have the areas apart. This one has the areas together. So once again, the setup is absolute value of x minus the midpoint. Now, what is the midpoint? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 divided by 2 is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right here's the midpoint, right? The midpoint is 2. The MP is right there, 2. So I'm going to put 2 right there. Now this is a positive 2, so I put it in as a positive 2, but the minus was already there from the setup. Now, what symbol belongs inside the box in our notes? The greater than symbol means that they're going apart. The less than symbol means that they're together. So what do you guys say? Less than. So you're going to put a less than symbol. Of course, you don't need the box. Another detail is that both of these dots are solid dots. So I need to make it a solid line underneath that inequality. Now, if they were open dots like the other one, we don't need to put the solid dot underneath, or the solid line underneath the inequality. And now for the last part of our notes, it says over here, it's really going to be the number that is the distance from one point to the middle, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. Either way, it's 4. So ladies and gentlemen, this is your answer right here. You don't have to change any signs. That's it. Absolute value of x minus 2 is less than or equal to 4. Got it?